You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 666.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. With your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded the week of June 2nd, 2025.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, the FAA extends its lithium battery ban for checked luggage. And a plane nearly lands on a closed runway, occupied by snow removal equipment.
8862 heavy go around.
8862 heavy going around.
Also ahead, more news and your feedback. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 666 is ready for pushback.
Thanks, Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation. 1010 wins on 92.3 FM in
New York City!
Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a former U.S. Air Force pilot and retired Delta Airlines captain, and joining me from his studio
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
He's a retired professional dog photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's the lovely Captain Nick.
Hello, Captain Jeff.
No.
This is amazing. Show 666. Now that number has special significance, even in aviation. Now, in fiction, number 666 Squadron was the unit led by the eponymous hero, Biggles. And in reality, it was an air observation unit spotting for artillery. And Old 666 was the name of a B-17 that undertook reconnaissance missions of Japanese-held islands against such fierce opposition that 2 of the crew were awarded the Medal of Honor and all of the others the Distinguished Service Cross. Now, in more recent times, Flight 666 was a Finnair flight to Hell, which is, of course, an abbreviation for Helsinki. And probably the most famous flight of 666 was by the Iron Maiden Band in their special Boeing 757 known as Ed Force One, which the band leader, their singer, Bruce Dickinson, a trained airline pilot, flew on a world tour and immortalized in their movie Flight 666.
Wow. So much info.
All that.
That's a lot.
Great number.
That's a lot.
So I had to look up eponymous, I have to admit, and figured out that an eponym is a noun after which or for which someone or something is or is believed to be named.
Yes.
Okay. That's a interesting
pretty
sentence
pointless word, quite honestly.
Well, as soon as you said it, I went, oh, son of a gun. I don't really know exactly what that word means, so I had to quickly look it up while you were telling us more about 666. I don't know if you saw me put this on the screen when you were reading your 666
I saw it out of the corner of my eye. All I thought was death had arrived.
Usually, a classic.
Yeah, I usually keep that in the hip pocket when we're talking about the airplanes that I've flown in my career and the fact that they're all retired. So people, you don't want to invite me to fly in your airplane because you're going to have to retire it.
The airplane slayer.
The airplane slayer, yeah, for sure. Interesting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And people love the number or hate the number, depending on your point of view.
Yeah.
My phone number starts with 666.
I was going to say, usually it's a warning to those of us humans in this world when somebody has those three numbers associated with something like their phone number.
Indeed.
Now it's making sense to me.
It's easy to remember, I can tell you that.
Yeah. All right. So that lovely voice you hear, of course, is our producer. Oh, I should say, from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and again, our producer. It's Liz Piper.
Good day, gentlemen, and everyone in the chat room. It's going to be a beastly show.
I guess they're not gentlemen in the chat room.
Oh, no, well, Tanya's there.
Oh,
well,
okay.
she's a gentlewoman.
A gentlewoman.
She is a
Oh,
gentlewoman.
Tanya, I saw a picture of her with
Jin.
Wow, May. No, what's his name? It's the Drive program.
Yes,
presenter James May.
James May. Yeah.
She met him presumably in New York. He was flogging his gin.
That's right.
But I love watching him on television.
I
so
do
I'm
too.
very jealous that Tanya met him.
He's a cool guy.
James May.
Yeah, James.
I like to call him
May.
Jim.
He's a very funny guy as well.
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, we're good friends. Only his
Have a
close
good
friends
show,
call
you
him Jimmy.
guys.
Thanks, Liz.
All right, cheers, Liz.
All right, time for the news bumper because we're going to talk about some aviation news.
Stand by for news.
I should mention before we cover our first news item that soon you're going to hear another voice. I didn't actually introduce him at the beginning of the show because we actually met up, the three of us, Liz and myself and Nick Camacho, last night. So we're going to intersperse a couple of items that we pre-recorded. So don't be too taken aback when you hear Camacho's voice. Yeah.
It's good to catch up with him. Yeah.
Wanted to mention that. Yeah, it was nice catching up with Camacho. Anyway, this now that we're doing is just the three of us, Liz, Nick Anderson, and Jeff. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Let's do the first item here from ndtv.com. And they're talking about, let me read this. America's security agency, the TSA, has banned some items, including all lithium battery-powered items in checked luggage. Travelers should not carry banned items in checked-in luggage, it says, of course, in a bid to streamline air travel and tighten security measures. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, in coordination with the FAA, has brought into effect a fresh ban on 7 types of items in all checked baggage on U.S. flights. All these are lithium battery-powered items that now must be packed in your carry-on luggage. This regulation amendment is a part of a larger safety campaign to avoid in-flight fires, which is a good thing. You want to avoid those, following a string of battery-related mishaps on commercial airplanes. Here are 7 items banned. Power banks, cell phone battery charging cases, spare lithium-ion batteries, spare lithium metal batteries, cell phone batteries, laptop batteries, and external battery packs and portable rechargers. The FAA guidelines state that lithium batteries have the potential to overheat and cause a dangerous chemical reaction called a thermal runaway. Factors such as physical damage, exposure to heat or water, overcharging, inadequate packaging, or internal manufacturing defects, those cheap ones that you're buying out there on eBay, might cause this reaction to occur suddenly. The FAA has issued a warning that thermal runaway, especially in a plane's cargo hold, can spread swiftly to neighboring batteries and pose an uncontrolled fire danger. Yeah, and once down there, we have little control over how the fire is extinguished with our current fire cargo hold extinguishing systems. So it's definitely a major concern, and I'm glad that they're implementing this. Your take, Captain Nick?
Absolutely, yeah. We've been calling for years now to have extra security on these items because if they do, and particularly they're particularly prone to it if they're the inexpensive types that don't have a lot of safety circuits built into them, or if they've been damaged, then they're the ones that are likely to do. And when they go off, they can be pretty hard to handle and get to very high temperatures very quickly indeed. So, yeah, I'm very glad that they're now in a place where at least the cabin crew who are trained to deal with it, albeit, if it's a large battery, you're going to have to be a pretty brave person to try and manhandle that into a safe container, but that's effectively what they've got. Much better that than have it just burning away in the cargo hold where all hell could break loose. So, this is great. I don't know if this was a copy of what the TSA say or if this is the journalist just putting it in his own words. But he says, fresh ban on 7 types of items, all in checked baggage. All these are lithium battery-powered items that must now be packed in your carry-on. You don't have to pack the lithium-powered item. So if it's a big piece of electrical kit that is powered by batteries, I'm assuming it's perfectly safe just to take the batteries out, put the big item in the cargo hold, and just put the batteries in your personal carry-on. But the way they've written it makes it sound like you've got to put the whole item must now be in your carry-on luggage.
Yeah,
so,
I think I agree with you. I think that if it's a removable, and it's a big, heavy, bulky item that you don't necessarily have to have that in your carry-on. Like, for instance, those little scooters, those electric scooters or whatever. Obviously, you can't put those on your carry-on because there's no room for them. But
it'd be fun to have them in the aircraft. You could whiz up and down the aisles on them, couldn't you? That would be great. But
no, you use trays, Nick. You use trays.
Yeah. Or you could slide up and down on your dinner trays. Yes.
Well, this is perfect. A perfect segue for me to kind of reintroduce my brilliant idea and perhaps. The way that I'm going to be just making millions and millions of dollars in my retirement is
fun.
that my idea. The age of airline pilots keeps, creeping up, and they keep allowing for us to, work later in our lives. Right now it's set at 65, but there are always those rumors. They're talking about, bumping it up to 67 or 70 or whatever. I'm thinking if that happens, I think that the pilots should have those little scooter things, and then take the seats out of the cockpit, and then you can just drive right up and lock your little scooter, electric scooter, down into position, and then when you're ready to.
Do you mean a chair for people who have trouble? A mobility chair.
Yeah, those little. I don't know, what are those things called? Those.
No. You're
like
you're
electric.
Well,
scooter,
I'm thinking of a scooter, 2 wheels and a handlebar.
Oh, not that kind of scooter. The little things that are
That'd be a little tough. Yeah.
Like the 3-wheel things, that people sit on, and they go around and drive around in.
Mall.
And then I'm thinking,
run over your feet.
Yeah, and then like you could do your walk-arounds with them. It would be like a scoot-around, not a walk-around. And you could put like one of those big giant flag antenna things, on there, so that you're more
right. So you know which airline
easily seen. Well, yeah, which airline.
Indeed.
I think it's a brilliant idea. Yeah.
I'm not sure you want to read this, but I'll put it up anyway.
Okay. Tim Van Ram, and I'm not surprised it's from Tim. Don't pack your sex toys in checked luggage. Vibration is not good for the luggage compartment. And this is obviously someone who is speaking with some experience in this area. Thank you, Tim.
I don't really want to know any more, thank you.
Okay. Well, then perhaps we should move on to the next news item. What do you think?
Good job. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Let's move to this news item from the Aviation Herald. It's a final report on an incident or accident that occurred at Santa Ana, Orange County, John Wayne. We call it so many different things in Southern California.
It's like Bradley.
And an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737-800, registration November 516 Alpha Sierra, performing flight 1288 from Seattle, Washington to Santa Ana, California, with 106 passengers and 6 crew, landed on Santa Ana's runway 20 right at 23:14 local time, so just before midnight, but touched down hard, causing the left main gear strut to be punched through the left wing. The aircraft came to a stop on the runway and was disabled. There were no injuries, and the aircraft sustained substantial damage. And so now we're going to scroll down to the NTSB final report that was released on the 23rd of May of this year. They concluded that the probable cause was maintenance personnel's excessive grinding of the left main landing gear's aft trunnion pin during machining, which imparted heat damage to the base metal and led to the fatigue cracking that caused the pin to fracture during landing. Oh, okay.
What are they doing grinding the trunnion pin?
I don't, some people, different strokes for different folks.
Slow day of movements, I guess.
Yeah, very slow. They're bored. Okay, the NTSB analyzed this accident occurred when the left main landing gear of an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737-800 collapsed during landing. Post-accident examination revealed that the aft trunnion pin in the left main landing gear failed during landing due to a fatigue fracture. The fracture initiated from a small intergranular region below the external chromium electroplated layer
produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan.
And they go on to say that the fatigue crack, which had propagated to a depth of 0.144 inches, was large enough to cause the remaining material to fracture in tensile or upward bending over stress during landing, resulting in the collapse of the left main landing gear. Do I have to read any more of this? This is
no, it was just
kind
a
of
maintenance
complicated
issue, but it was a hard landing too.
It was a hard landing, but the part should have been able to withstand the forces on it. However, it was a fatigue crack in the intergranular region of the aft trunnion pin.
I try and keep my intergranular region to myself. But.
Well, yeah.
I'm still confused as to why this trunnion pin needed to be ground down. So does it come like one size, and if the hole you're trying to put it in is too small, then you grind it down? But it's complicated because you've got to. Apparently they had to grind it down and then re-chrome it afterwards because it has to have the layer of chrome on it. And they kind of did that in the wrong order. So they chromed it before they tried to inspect it, and they couldn't do a proper inspection of it to ensure the work was done properly because it was now chromed. So I'm going, this does not sound terribly
brilliant.
Safe. Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Crazy. Yeah.
As an airline pilot working for that company, I would be going, what the hell are our engineers doing down there? Come on, guys.
I'm hoping that they maybe took a look at some other aircraft main landing gear components that may have also gone or undergone
grinding.
the procedure,
grinding.
the grinding of intergranular fractures in the
Sam has a somewhat unrelated
turbo
comment, but
encapsulator. Okay, Sam, what? Sam says, I think John Wayne has an 11 p.m. curfew for arrivals. Yeah, well, I guess they were about 14 minutes late when they touched down. And now they regret it.
Maybe they didn't back in 23.
They've always had, a very strict curfew. He's right. I don't know. Maybe they have some kind of a facility or exception kind of thing, and you have to pay a fine if you're beyond that 11 p.m. I don't know. But they're very noise sensitive there. I can tell you that for sure. That's definitely a thing.
All
All right.
That's all you need to say about that.
Yeah,
Now we can
wow.
talk about snow plows and stuff.
I hope you enjoyed me putting that little sound
I love
clip in there,
that.
the turbo
That's
encabulator.
always funny.
Because that was when I was reading this, when we were doing, believe it or not, we actually do prep for the show sometimes. When I was reading through all this in my head, that's all I could hear was that guy going, the turbo encabulator and the framulated
Your eyes were glazing
something
over
base
and you could
plate.
hear that in your head.
The elevated reading from the Barkhausen noise inspection. That's actually in the report, by the way. The Barkhausen noise inspection.
Some people may really enjoy reading that.
Yes.
Report, so
Yep.
it'll be in the
People
show
like
notes.
Camacho, maybe Rick would enjoy
He'd love it.
that kind of thing. The Wikipedia.
Okay.
All right,
Moving on.
I think we should continue then.
Now you
with
have a video.
this video. Yes, I was trying to play this earlier, and I'm glad I didn't
on the
because
stage.
it would have been the wrong news. Thank you. That's very helpful, Neil. Liz, Neil, who's Neil?
I'm not kneeling. I'm not kneeling for you, Jeff.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that
You
later.
weren't trying
Okay.
to say Liz Nielsen, were you?
No, yeah, wow, don't think so.
No.
Wait a minute. Liz, you don't have to react quite that disgustedly.
Oh, yeah. No, he didn't. Do you want to just say what this is about before you play the video? Like
Yeah,
the
I think we
headline
should.
Or something?
Yeah, I think we should set it up. So this video that we're going to play from Vass Aviation, thank you very much, Vass Aviation, for putting out these wonderful videos. It involves a Acme Giant airline. What's the real name? Atlas 747. I think.
We don't know anybody there.
And we don't know anybody that flies for them. Coming in for landing at Anchorage, the Anchorage International Airport.
Ted Stevens, I believe.
Ted Stevens. Yeah, whatever. And they are...
Who are all these people?
I think he was a senator.
Yeah, it's that's why
a Roman?
I've mentioned that. I don't know. I've mentioned on the show before. I never used, or maybe I did every once in a while, use the name of whatever, like the airport's named for somebody, and especially if it's a political figure, even if you like that political figure or you don't. I'm thinking, let's just stop the nonsense and just call it, Atlanta International. Let's call it Washington National Airport. Not all the. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll step down from my soapbox and tell you again about this video. It's a 747 for a cargo freight liner, 747 landing at Anchorage. And they're coming in on the arrival. That's when we start to hear the audio for this. Coming in on the arrival they're using runway 7 left and 7 right, although 7 right is closed because they're removing snow on that runway. So
let's just let it
let's
unfold.
let the video play, and we'll comment on it after it is finished playing. So here we go.
First, good morning, John 8862 is 10,700 descending via the Nil 7 with information Delta.
John 8862, have any Anchorage approach after Inc. cleared ILS, runway 7 left approach.
Sir Shank, cleared the ILS runway 7 left, John 8862. Tower, good morning, John 8862, heavy ILS 7 right.
John 8862, heavy Anchorage Tower, good morning, runway 7 right, clear to land.
All right, clear to land, John 8862, heavy.
Thought they said 7 left before.
Tower up 3.
They did.
The right's still closed, correct?
Top 3, affirmative, right is still closed, and looks like it's still okay to be closed for a little while until that fog rolls through.
Isn't that
Roger.
the same voice that just cleared an aircraft to land on 7
Quebec
right?
6030, heavy, turn left,
Yep.
Charlie FA, if not, continue down to Bravo.
You are correct, sir.
Left Charlie, and
FedEx 6030, heavy, taxi park via Kilo Romeo.
all right, Charlie Kilo Romeo depart at 6030.
Okay. Okay, the flight is approaching the land on runway 7 right, which is closed due to snow removal works, even though they just cleared them to land on it.
Giant 8862, Heavy, go around.
John 86-2 Heavy, going around.
Shenzhen 8862 Heavy, it looked like you were lined up for runway 7 right. Fly the published mist and contact approach on 118.6.
7 right, roger.
Yeah, he's going.
FedEx 6010 Heavy, engine run-up is approved. Runway 33, clear for takeoff.
Runway 33, clear for takeoff. FedEx 6010 Heavy.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video right now because I don't really think that there's anything significant beyond this point. What was significant has already happened. So,
do you want me to take this off?
No, if you'll leave that on there, please, Liz. I would like to go back a little bit. So initially, they're coming in on this arrival. A little confusion about the after which waypoint you're going to fly the ILS approach, or you're cleared the ILS approach to runway 7 left, which was their direction instruction. The flight read back a different waypoint, which is the waypoint before Ankh. They read back Schenken. So a little confusion there. And they read back to the approach to 7 left. And then I think they did anyway. Here, let me...
Oh, I thought they read back.
Okay, let me play it again. I forget. Oops.
Yes, they did. They started off. Everything on this frequency is 7
was
left.
good.
Everyone's got it right.
Yep, there. He read back 7 left. Okay. Then as we fast forward, he switches over to tower frequency, and right about here, I think is where we pick up. Okay, so he checks in with tower.
Tower, good morning, John 8862 Heavy, ILS 7 right.
John 8862 Heavy, Anchorage Tower, good morning, runway 7 right, clear to land.
All right, clear to land, John 8862 Heavy.
Okay, so he checks in with tower and says 7 right, even though they were cleared 7 left. And then, of course, confirmation bias, or whatever you want to call it, the tower repeats the incorrect runway assignment and says cleared to land, runway 7 right.
And then she talks to ops and talks about it being closed.
So, yeah, so the next thing I think is critical here, because ops is out there managing all the snow removal, and he's thinking, did she just say cleared to land 7 right? I mean, I have all my equipment, all my men and equipment out here on the runway. Let me just confirm this with her. And so let's continue with that.
Tower Op 3 was the right's still closed, correct?
Top 3, affirmative, right is still closed, and looks like it's still okay to be closed for a little while until that fog rolls through.
Roger.
Okay, so that was all he said. And I'm thinking it probably would have been a good, because I can sense in his voice that he's going, like, it's still closed, right? And she said, yeah, it's still closed. And then he goes, Roger. Like, I think I would have said, if I were Ops 3, because it sounded to me like you just cleared somebody to land on runway 7 right.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jeff. I mean, it's not his job, but
no,
that would have been, he would have been the person that broke the chain, that misaligned the Funyuns, so this didn't happen. He could have been a hero, and he let his moment go by.
Yeah, that was like one of those little, things where somebody was thinking to themselves, I don't think that we're on the same page here. Something is not quite right, and I don't know why he didn't want to kind of expand on it a little bit more. And, in hindsight now, I'm sure that he wishes he had. But it's late at night or early in the morning, and the tower controller is busy managing a lot of different things, and she's probably so used to saying, cleared to land 7 right, or kind of repeating whatever the inbound flight says to them. And she probably didn't even realize she said, yeah, cleared to land 7 right. And then it's not kind of ringing a bell in her head when this Ops 3 guy asks, 7 right's closed, right? So anyway, interesting.
Could have been bad.
But
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the weather obviously wasn't very good. They're talking about fog rolling in, etc. So, the 7-4 crew, other than picking up on their mistake when they suddenly realized that they were landing on the wrong runway, they might have put it down, and then it would have all been too late.
would have been a mess for sure. Okay. Well, that was an interesting one. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have the possibility of some of these news items / feedback items to be covered by Camacho. And Camacho and I are together, and Liz, and a couple of people actually in our live audience are here as well. Just kind of a last minute thing the day before we recorded the bulk of the show. We got together just to kind of, mix it up a little bit and have somebody that might have some expert knowledge in some of these things. So welcome, Camacho.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Good
for
to see you.
Working around my schedule here.
Yeah, which is what we got to do to get you people that have that work thing going on.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that. So I'm glad that we were able to accommodate you. Let's cover this piece of feedback that you sent in, Nick, quite a while ago. And it's something that we covered, shortly after it happened. And now we have a final report on it. I guess we must have covered the preliminary version of this incident. And so the Australian government has come out with their final report on the collision with terrain involving an extra EA300-LT, Victor Hotel X-Ray Kilo Whiskey. This happened about 10 kilometers west-southwest of Bathurst Airport, or would that be the correct pronunciation?
Bathurst. Yeah,
Bathurst? Okay.
Yep.
New South Wales on the 13th of October of last year. Okay, so this report was just released, about a little over a month ago, 10 April of 2025. Okay, so what happened, just to kind of remind you, on October 13th of 2024, an extra EA300LT with a single pilot on board departed from Bathurst Airport to conduct a trophy delivery at the annual Bathurst 1000 motor race at the Mount Panorama circuit, about 10 kilometers west-southwest of the airport. After landing on Mountain Strait, the location of the trophy handover, the aircraft collided with a concrete barrier. Following the trophy handover, the aircraft departed overhead spectator stands with a damaged tailplane. Yeah, so when they say that he collided with terrain, or collided with a concrete barrier, it was just like a little bit of the, what would you say, Nick, just the outside edge of the aileron. I mean, not aileron, the elevator.
Elevator, yeah.
Horn
there's
or
like the
something.
tip of the elevator.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's. I think that airplane has aero balances, but yeah, the outboard edge of the elevator that goes all the way up.
Okay.
And I think we watched the video, but it was there were parts clearly visibly being ejected from the aircraft, or I don't know how to say that. As you watched him hit the concrete, like the Jersey barrier or whatever, you saw parts come off of the airplane. And then, he taxied back, and then they also showed him turn around and take off. And as he turned around, there was like very clear evidence of damage to the tail, because the two sides of the tail didn't look the same. So
yeah, that's a good clue. And this was part of a motor racing course that he landed on. So this thing was not an airport, wasn't made for airplanes. But this is a pretty, it's a very flexible airplane. It's an aerobatic airplane. It's not that big.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess let me read a little bit more here. What the Australian Transportation Safety Board found in preparing for the event, the pilot planned to land and take off over a designated no-fly area occupied by spectators, which did not comply with the Civil Aviation Safety Authority's required spectator safety heights and distances for an air display. The aircraft struck a barrier after landing on Mountain Strait during a reversal turn, resulting in damage to the tailplane, as Nick was mentioning. However, following advice of the impact from a media helicopter, the helicopter's up there flying, he saw this happen and said, "Hey, dude, I think you hit the barrier with your tail." The pilot did not conduct an external inspection and subsequently departed overhead a spectator no-fly area. The ATSB also found that the CASA inspector approved the pilot's application to land and take off from Mountain Strait despite limited information from the applicant and the published safety constraints of the no-fly areas surrounding the planned landing area. So, yeah, I mean, from what I remember, Nick, I don't even think he got out of his airplane, did he? I mean, he just like, here's your trophy, and then I'm going to just get out of here.
Bye-bye.
Maybe nobody will notice that I hit my tailplane on the concrete barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I highlighted some this. So this report is very long and detailed.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is interested in reading the whole thing, I don't think we'll be able to read it all here. But I highlighted some sections that I thought was interesting.
Okay.
As you go down. So because this is kind of common in the United States also, right? For aerial displays, a lot of times you have to get waivers or you have to get approval from the governing body. In our case, it's the FAA, to do something that is out of the ordinary or to waive flight rules, right? Like we've talked about that in the past. For air shows, you fly under a waiver, which means that they will waive certain regulations to allow the aerial demonstration to happen. And in exchange for that waiver, they limit the pilots that are able to fly, and they limit the types of airplanes, and they put all these kind of protections in place in lieu of the fact that they're waiving the regulations. And
the reason that you know about this is, and for those of you who may be new to the show, Nick, one of the things that he does in his world of flying is he is a part of the crew of a historic bomber. Well, would it be a bomber? No, maybe. I mean, sometimes you threw some things out.
Cargo airplane.
Cargo aircraft. Just a quick explanation to those who may be new to the show and don't really know some of the things that you do.
Yeah, I'm part of a crew that operates a C-47 or a military version of the DC-3. Our airplane is based in California, and we do a lot of different things with the airplane. But one of the less common these days, unfortunately, but one of the things we used to do quite often was display the airplane at air shows, and so.
And what's the name of it, Nick?
Betsy's Biscuit Bomber.
Bomber, did you say bomber?
Yeah.
That's probably why that was in my head, why I said bomber.
Yeah.
Well, then you flew a bomber too, then, Jeff.
Well, did I fly a bomber?
Well, it was a cargo plane.
Oh, yeah, but we didn't have bomber, and then it wasn't a C-141 Starlifter bomber.
I
know. Okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah. So I haven't been... I've been involved on the edges of this process, right? Like I've showed up and they explain the waiver, and then they have us provide our qualifications for flying in the waiver. But I've never been involved in like the actual bureaucracy that goes on between the display body and the governing body, I guess. So a couple of things that I thought were interesting in here is, so essentially how this works, I guess I should say, is the pilot or, somebody with the race reached out to the pilot, I think, and asked him to do this display or to fly this trophy in. And so then he puts together a plan and sends it to the CASA, which is Australia's version of the FAA, and says, here's what we're going to do. Here are the things that I would like to accomplish. And CASA says, here are the things you have to be aware of. Here are the things that we don't want to see you do. And then here are the things that we are all right doing. And as you scroll down through here, so this is actually the third one he did, the Bathurst 1000. And when he was flying in, he identified a display coordinator. So they asked for him to have a display coordinator as part of his plan. And it says display coordinator was also identified as the ground boss for the display and was responsible for clearing the pilot for landing and takeoff from the track, responsible for monitoring other traffic during aerobatic displays, and was a member of the emergency response plan and had stop display abilities within the risk assessment. The next paragraph says, despite being assigned these responsibilities, the nominated display coordinator reported to the ATSB that while they agreed to support the Sandown event, which is a previous racing event that he had done a similar display at, they were not at the Bathurst event and were unaware that they had been nominated by the pilot on the Bathurst display application submitted to CASA. So in essence, the CASA, the Civil Air Authority, whatever CASA stands for, they said you need to have a person on the ground to help you facilitate this display. And the pilot said, "Oh yeah, sure, I've got this guy." Then never told the guy, and then the guy wasn't there.
Wow.
So that was one big.
That's not good.
One big no-no, and then the other big no-no here is, Liz, I saw you putting some pictures up. Did you happen to grab the picture that had the no-fly areas highlighted? It was further down.
That one?
Yep. Perfect. So,
can you put
this
it on the
says,
stage?
Oh, did I? Yeah.
It's up.
It's up.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see it. That's weird.
Don't scare me like that.
I'm sorry.
So then
I'm just seeing Nick and I here. I'm not seeing.
Oh no, I see it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Good. I don't know what's going on.
The gremlins are coming for Jeff.
It's funny because we're trying to, like, Liz is trying to like swap our video places and like make your video bigger than mine because you're doing most of the talking, and we can't swap our video images for some reason. This is weird, the behavior we're experiencing here today.
Oh, well, carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So if you look at this, for those who can see the screen, if you look at the picture, there's between the Hell Corner arrow and the Mountain Straight arrow, that's where this guy was landing and taking off. And so for those who can't see the screen, this is a portion of the racetrack that I assume kind of runs north-south based on this map, but I'm not really sure. But the entire approach path, essentially, of this of his landing route is completely covered with a no-fly area, and then additionally, there's a no-fly area to the what would be the east, if I'm looking at it correctly, and in the report it states the northern end of Mountain Straight was surrounded by no-fly areas, but the display diagram did not include the planned approach and departure paths over these areas. Similar to Sandwick risk assessment, the only risk associated with the trophy handover was landing with people on track. And then we scroll down a little bit and it says the FOI. The FOI is essentially the person, the CASA person associated with it, like the case manager, essentially. The FOI reported that the ATSB, that on review of the application, they assumed that the pilot would comply with the no-fly areas on the display diagram and that they were unaware of the topography of Mountain Straight. So I assume that they looked at this and they said, oh, interesting, his takeoff and landing area is partially obscured by no-fly sections. But if he came in from like the southeast and did a right base to final and landed going north, then he should be fine. But they never apparently specifically asked about it.
They had made some assumptions that this is what he was going to do, probably.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so rather than making that approach, the pilot flew directly over the explicitly labeled no-fly area to land with a tailwind, and then says, yeah, that probably wasn't a great idea. So then he turns around and takes off the way that he came with a headwind now. And again, flies directly over a no-fly area. And these no-fly areas are denoted because there are grandstands. So there's bunches of people in these areas.
It was a great show for the people, the spectators.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he departed back over the no-fly area with a damaged airplane. And essentially that's, I think, I don't think they've announced any penalties or issues to him yet, but I can't imagine that it's going to end well for him.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like it's going to be something that he'll be able to get away with without some kind of punishment or action.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh. Well, that was interesting, especially for the guy that was supposed to be the guy controlling on the ground. And excuse me?
Jeff,
No,
do you think
I'm
this
sorry.
guy was he kind of a cowboy, Jeff? Do you think
Oh, yeah. I think maybe it does sound kind of like he was a cowboy. Oh, no. Oh, there we go.
Nope. You had it.
It was a delayed reaction. Sorry.
Well, he had to come all the way from Australia. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a long way away. That's why it took so long to get here.
Well, that's a good read. Everybody should read it from the show.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have the report from the ATSB in our show notes.
Last but not least.
Okay, the last news item that we're going to cover on today's show is this from the NewYorkTimes.com. And so this involves a Chinese paraglider who was doing some kind of ground test, which I don't really understand because ground test, I mean, he's in the air, obviously. He's flying his paraglider, let's see, at a very high altitude. Well, he was trying to get up to about 10,000 feet, I think, what his plan was for this test.
I don't think he was planning to get airborne at all, was he?
Well, I think so. I think it says, well, he intended to simply test some equipment, instead ended up unwittingly reaching barely survivable heights last week. He's 55 years old and the guns
he hadn't logged the flight. With the Chinese, I think they have to gain permission to do each flight or whatever. And they said that based on his statement that he did not have a flight planned and was doing ground handling training, which does not require the participants to register plans in advance, they were more lenient with him. Because if he'd planned to fly, he wouldn't have. Hadn't put in the request, and he would have been in a lot of trouble. I think he was sucked off the ground.
Well, so I don't. This is a little confusing because this one paragraph here, according to local news media, he was testing equipment as part of a quote ground handling training, a step that paragliders say is critical to managing safe launches, at an altitude of 3,000 meters above sea level, or about 10,000 feet. Does that mean that's the elevation of the?
Could well be.
Oh, okay.
I don't know exactly where they are, but yes.
Ah, I see. Okay, that's why in my mind, he's already up there flying around, then he gets sucked into this cloud. But you're right. But a strong wind suddenly lifted him into the sky. So, yeah, at that point, he was not in the sky, but now he is. And it was it's a phenomenon. A phenomenon that the paragliders call cloud suck. Wow, that cloud sucks. In which a pilot is rapidly drawn up into a cloud. At extreme altitudes, people risk hypoxia or oxygen deprivation because of the thin air. He managed to land about 20 miles away from where he took off. In stable health and recovering from his surprise flight, he has since said, thinking about it still makes me quite scared. The China Daily reported on Thursday. The local sporting authority in Gansu province said on Wednesday that Mr. Peng, who is a licensed paraglider, would be barred from the sport for 6 months. Well, I mean, what did he do wrong?
I know. He did nothing wrong. He was practicing inflating his wing, I suspect, and moving around, because it's quite a difficult thing to handle, I gather. And he got whipped off the ground. So you go, oh, poor bloke. Oh, well. Now, of course, I know a little bit about cloud suck because I did a plain tale about it.
Oh.
APG 380 it came out, and it was titled Cloud Suck, and it was all about gliding, and particularly people who went for altitude records by gliding up through thunderstorms, and how some of them came croppers. So this reminded me immediately of that, because it's, climbing an aircraft around in a thunderstorm was pretty bad. And I think I also quoted some unfortunate pilots, or perhaps I think they were pilots who ejected But anyway, a parachutist has got caught up in this and in cloud suck and ended up, going to enormous altitude and nearly dying. So
doesn't this guy just look miserable though?
Yeah, this guy looks like he's having a lot of fun there.
Yes, but at least he's popped out the top now. He's around 32,000 feet though.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that part of it. He got sucked up really, really high.
Yes.
Amazing
Wow.
he survived.
Yeah. Oh no. Okay. I misled you there, Jeff. Because
only 28,000.
They're actually, yeah. There's a champion Polish paraglider who competed on the German national team. He reached over 32,000 feet, accidentally breaking the paragliding height record on a practice flight in Australia, just days before he competed in the World Paragliding Championships. Actually, it was a lady. Her 6-mile ascent was so treacherous, she passed out in the thin air and eventually landed more than 50 miles away from where she took off. Wow. Dangerous sport, this.
I almost see that as a good thing. I mean, I'm up there and I don't want to really experience this, so passing out might be the best thing to happen.
Well, good point, actually. I'm very glad that these Parawings are stable enough not to do anything stupid, that they just can carry you and you can be completely unconscious dangling beneath it, and it'll still continue flying. Not like a helicopter, I might add. If there are any helicopter pilots listening, you tried doing that in a helicopter.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Get to know you.
Or a hot air balloon. You tried doing it in a hot air balloon. You might be a bit warmer in a hot air balloon, I guess.
Yeah, at least you have something making heat.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, boy. All right, it's time for us to get to know Captain Nick. That's all right. Yeah, that's a good retro graphic that Liz is showing there. Getting to know us segment is where we kind of get all caught up with what people have been up to between episodes. And Captain Nick, how have you been, sir? Been doing anything fun and interesting? Still doing your bowls, your bowling stuff?
Oh, most certainly. In fact, played a match last night. We had a conclusive win in the end, but this was, one of the big competitions, and we're playing with three players, so it's a triple. And we went away to a different club, so it's always a little bit different when you're on somebody else's green because you're not used to it. But we managed to, we'd managed to dominate eventually, although it took us a wee while, and had a good result. So that was really nice. Day off today, and then I've got 2 matches in a row, and then another match on Sunday, which is a national singles competition. So that'll, and I'm playing against quite a. I'm in the second round of that, having already defeated someone, playing quite a well-known and famously good player. So I've got to play Jim, and I've met him, I know him, so it'll be fun, but that won't be quite so easy.
And when is that?
That's on Sunday afternoon. I'm playing that match, but I think the only day I've got off is Saturday, and we've got one of my sons is visiting along with his girlfriend, and we're taking them to the cinema and doing a barbecue, which reminds me I must get a bottle of gas because the one in there is feeling very light, and it wasn't running at full blast last time I used it. So yeah, I've got to get that done. Anyway, it's been a good week so far, and hopefully
and you did
we'll
some
continue.
cover art.
Yeah, we had some good suggestions for the last show cover art. Flame out, relight, Russian tongue, hotline, cold line, up lock, down lock, 2 tall pilots, and the perspiration of Japan. I was trying to figure a way to get that into this picture, but I couldn't. So I love the idea of Bugs Bunny saying, "What's up, lock, dock?" Mm-hmm. So that's the one we took with the damaged upper lock of the 737 that we featured, we talked about the last show. And what we've got here is Bugs Bunny
This was tough.
holding the uplock that he's stolen off Elmer's aircraft, and his gear is falling off. Excuse me, my wife is dancing around in front of my doorbell and setting it off all the time. So I'm going to have to go and shout at her in a minute.
Oh, you're fine.
So what? Dancing naked. No, I don't think she's dancing naked. She sometimes does that in the back garden if we have a thunderstorm. She because she puts on her witch gear and then dances out naked.
Okay.
So what? Yeah, we managed to include the Acme anvil, which is one of our sidelines. Apart from having an airline, we build anvils and a few other bits and bobs. With the Roadrunner there and a very squash coyote. We've managed to fit the jackass, after Liz reminded me, doing a bit of wing waddling. So the jackass is actually, in his spare time, a wing waddler.
Not a wing walker.
We would call them a wing walker, but
There he is up there.
jackass penguins don't walk, they waddle. So he's a wing
cute.
waddler. Now, if you wanted the logo, your number, look at the feet of Bugs Bunny there. I've turned it upside down to make it easier, but it's 665. And that was an afterthought because I'd already put it on the hook because I decided that this hook had a capacity of 655 pounds. So on the actual curve of the hook, that's written, and then of course the logo is printed.
I actually did spot the numbers on the hook there. I didn't see on the bottom of the
one on his feet. You see, I'm getting tricksy.
Yeah.
I'm
You are.
There you go. Yes, 665 pounds. Anyway, that was fun doing that one, and I think it's not a bad representation of Bugs Bunny. He certainly looks happy enough. But I had to put the carrot in his hand because the stupid AI didn't think he deserved a carrot. And, of course, I had to put the uplock in his hand as well. So, it does a good job of various bits, but you have to, if you want detail, you have to do it all yourself.
Well, you're very talented with the Photoshop, sure.
I don't think so, but there you go. It is fun. It gives me something to do, doesn't it?
All right. Let's see. Do you want to do like a short getting caught up with what you've been up to, Nick, or have you been?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But yeah, so I have not been. We've done a fair amount of work on airplanes, but I've not been able to fly because we've been getting just torrential rains that I was discussing with Jeff and Liz before the show started. But I think we got about 5.5 inches of rain last week. And then today we've gotten, I think, in the ballpark of 6 inches of rain or so. And I think we've got one more little spurt of it coming here shortly.
No roof leaks?
No roof leaks yet. No real issues with our house. The only issue we ran into is there was significant roadway flooding through areas of Wichita and the little suburb that I live in. And we had taken my son to a baseball camp at the high school here. And so my wife literally like drove out of the driveway, and it's probably a 5-minute drive from our house to the school where the camp is. And I think we probably got the flash flood warning. They send out like through the iPhones and everything, and it says, "Oh, you're now in a flash flood warning. Do not leave your house except to get away from danger."
Take your son to baseball.
Or whatever. And so I thought, well, that's inconvenient. But I looked at the front and I was like, well, our neighborhood road doesn't look that bad. And then my wife got back and she was like, yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to go. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, 21st, the main street that we go on, she said that was already kind of covered in water. And she drove my truck. So she was like, I didn't have any trouble in the truck, but it looked like some of the little cars are starting to have trouble. And I was like, oh man. So then I was like, well, are they going to call us? Are they going to cut the camp short or whatever? And she said, I don't have any information. Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to drive back there and I'll kind of like assess how the roads are as I go back. And then, I'll either pick him up or I'll let him stay it's only like a 3-hour camp. And so I drove back halfway through it and I basically sat there for an hour and a half and worked on my computer in the truck while I was waiting for my son. But
is your dog able to go out in this wetness?
She is, but she's not very motivated.
She's not happy, yeah.
No. So I assume, which is good, because usually, we've got our backyard has 2 adjoining backyards on the other side of our fence. So our fence is split by 2 other yards, and both of them have dogs, fenced yards with dogs as well. So it's not uncommon to like have them like get into a little play session, where they're either barking like crazy and driving everyone crazy, or Roxy's wanting to go out every 15 minutes. So that relieves some of that pressure. But
I'm guessing Tim Van Ram has not had much rain.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
California.
what's funny is when I was going to say California was in a big drought when I left, and we got a whole bunch of rain right when I moved here. And then it kind of flipped for a couple of years, and at least San Luis area of California got a fair amount of rain, probably 21 and 22 maybe. Or no, maybe 22 and 23. And now it's almost like it's flipped back again, because I was sending pictures of we have a small river flowing through our backyard now, that I was sending some videos to coworkers, and they were saying, oh, send that out here. We're ready for that. So,
yeah.
Outside of that, I had one minor squawk on my airplane that I was trying to work through. I had a kind of a grounding issue with an instrument. So I anticipated it being a ground location issue, and I opened up the panel to start taking wiring apart, and planned on it being like an all-day affair. And I disconnected the instrument and reconnected it, and I thought, well, let's just see. Let me just work my way back, and just doing that caused the instrument to start functioning again.
Oh,
which on one hand is nice, because I did not have to dig very deep. But on the other hand, I don't actually know physically what I did to make it work. So then I took it apart again, and I looked at the back of the connector, made sure all the contacts were pushed in all the way. But I think it's one of those things where I'm just going to have to fly the airplane a little bit and be aware of that instrument. There might be a fault in that instrument, but it's easy to tell. It's got a very noticeable failure mode, so it's not.
You know what?
Bad as
I would recommend you might want to think about having a licensed airframe and power plant mechanic to take a look at that.
What's funny is I have a bunch of friends who are also AMPs, and I am always reaching out to people, like, because I just don't feel like I know anything. And I've got friends who are AMPs, and my dad's friends too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I reached out to one of my dad's friends who's an AMP and kind of an avionics specialist for 40 years or something, right? And I said, hey, this is what happened, and these are the things I did, and I'm not really sure what to do next. I mean, it was failing, and then it kind of fixed itself, but now I can't get it to fail, but I didn't really do anything to fix it. And he was just like, it sounds like you don't have a problem anymore. Just go fly it.
There you go. That sounds like my style.
He's kind of the guy when I'm like, I don't really know what else to do, but I just want some reinforcement. He's a good one to go to.
Excellent. And just so that people know, Nick is a licensed AMP.
Yeah.
How long ago was it? Has it been it's been more than a year now, right? A couple of years since you got your certification?
So it was December of 2022.
Okay, yeah, it has been.
Which means
so
that
2.5 years.
Yep, which means that in December of this year, I will pass a big threshold, which is the 3 years required to get an inspection authorization.
Ooh.
All right.
Nice.
I don't know if that's another
is that something you have to take a test for, or get another person to give
it's
you
similar
like
to
a
it's
check
similar
ride
to the
or
AMP. I'll have to go to the FAA and basically interview with the FAA to get approved. So I'll provide them. when I got my AMP, I had to provide all of my evidence of like experience of learning how to get my AMP. Now I'll have to go back to them and I'll have to provide them all of my experience as an AMP, and they'll have to determine if I am a worthy candidate for an IA inspection authorization. And then if they do, it's just a written test. So that's really the best. That's really the best kind in all of FAA land, because there's no practical test associated with it. You just go take it written.
And it's probably most of the questions they're going to ask you are probably mostly associated with like administrative stuff, right?
Yeah. It's lots of paperwork, which, as concerned as I was about the AMP, because I didn't feel like I had been doing it forever, but there's just so much stuff to know. Like with paperwork, I've been assisting my dad with paperwork since as long as I can remember, because he's just not a huge paperwork guy. So it was easy for me to kind of take in that role. So that's one thing that has been that I've been fairly comfortable with since getting my AMP, is doing the paperwork, doing research, and writing log entries and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Tim Van Ram endorses.
Tim Van Ram in our live chat says, always a good idea to share your mechanical troubles with friends for a different perspective. So helpful on planes, boats, cars, RVs. Yes, trains too.
Captain Jeff?
I am just, doing the normal things that I do, singing and editing podcasts and that sort of thing. And but I do have some exciting news. Later today, that espresso machine that I've mentioned, I think, once or twice on the show, that I ordered in early April. Thank you for the sound effects, Captain Nick. He was making steaming some milk for the latte. Thank you. The machine that I've been, my dream machine, espresso maker, is going to arrive today, sometime between 3 and 5 o'clock this afternoon. So I am looking forward to that, and I'll make sure that I take pictures and,
before you drop
everybody.
it, take some pictures, please.
I better not drop it. If I drop it,
well caffeinated.
It's going to be a
cheers
a mess.
Before bedtime. Yes.
You know how much that thing weighs?
No.
66 pounds.
Well, I think there's a fairly good chance you'll drop it then.
I hope I don't. And
just don't put your back out.
We were discussing this with Camacho yesterday. He was asking if I was going to be taking that with me in the RV studio, the road vessel studio. And by the way, it's parked. I managed to get the space right in front of my apartment unit that is not marked as a reserved spot, and I never ever see that space open.
Woo-hoo!
And when I came back from the grocery store yesterday, I thought, well, I'm just going to look just to be, oh, look, it's open. So I snagged my little parking spot there. So I'm looking at the RVS out the window here. So I'm going to have to do a trial run with the unit. Well, first of all, when it arrives today, I'm going to see how heavy it is to get up on the countertop. And I'm thinking if it's too bulky, heavy, I may not even try to put it into the RVS, but it would be kind of nice to be able to take that with me on my trip to up to Canada and to Oshkosh later in July. Just to have that kind of capability on my trip.
I can imagine when you're driving the whole RV is going to be sort of tilting over a bit.
Yeah, why is that guy's RV like about to tip over? He might have one of those really expensive, very heavy espresso makers in there.
But you could just pull off to the side of the road, put up a little sign, and sell espresso.
Oh, I could.
You could.
Good idea. I could make some extra money.
Keep them awake.
Yeah, go to the truck stops and put up a sign and say, "Hey, freshly made espresso," by Jeff.
Indeed.
Anyway, so I'm excited about that. And then next week, the end of next week, I'm getting the final delivery of
get a bed for a change.
Furniture that I ordered quite some time ago. the bed and the nightstand and the chest of drawers or the dresser or whatever you want to call it arrive Friday of next week. So
nice. It's going to be like Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
Do you want to just talk quickly about Coffee Fund before you move on to your
let's do that. Let's talk about the Coffee Fund. Let's see here. Do I want some coffee?
Johnny, how much more coffee?
Yes, please.
All right. Yeah, I definitely want some coffee.
I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh, yeah. The Coffee Fund. The Coffee Fund is helping me pay for this very expensive espresso machine. Just kidding. I'm using my own personal money for that. The Coffee Fund is your way to support the show financially. A lot of costs, a lot of expenses that we have to do this. It's not free. But it's free to you, unless you feel like you want to help us out in a small way. And if you do, you can join the Coffee Bar Club. And a couple of different ways, a couple of different mechanisms to use to contribute. One is the Coffee Fund Classic method, which is essentially a PayPal donation site or page. And most people use it for like every once in a while kind of contributions. Some actually use it as a recurring contribution mechanism, and we do thank them for that. The other way, if you feel like giving us a certain amount per episode kind of thing, Patreon is the perfect place for you. All that information about how you can join these fine folks is over at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did, and we will too. Time for some feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
Okie doke. We're going to start with some audio feedback from Thomas Witherspoon. He is the host of swling.com or Facebook group swling.com. Oh, same thing. That's just spelled out dot. We'll have those links in the show notes. SWL, what does that mean, Captain Nick? It has something to do with...
It's shortwave listening.
Listening, okay.
Yeah, I mean, people who didn't want to or hadn't yet qualified to transmit on HF, like, the radio hams and radio amateurs around the world do, often just listen out on the HF frequencies, which is SWLing, shortwave listening.
Oh, thank you very much for clarifying that. Well, anyway, Thomas is really into that, and as I said, he hosts a website and a podcast, I think, every once in a while. I think it may have been a while since he's done one. But anyway, he listens. He's one of our APG community members. You'll remember a couple of years ago, I was on a road trip in the Asheville area. On the way back, he invited me to stay in. They have an Airbnb listing very close to the home that they built. It's beautiful mountainside in north of is it east of Asheville? I forget the exact Swannanoa, that's it. Swannanoa, very close to Asheville. And anyway, so I took him up on it and got to stay in the Airbnb, and then they invited me up the hill to their home, beautiful home, for a dinner, and I got to meet his family, his wife and his kid, his two daughters. Oh, just a great time. Really, really enjoyed that. And anyway, he sent some audio feedback to us, so let's have a listen.
Hello, APG crew. It's Thomas Witherspoon here in Asheville, and I wanted to drop a little audio feedback. I realize it's probably been a couple of years since I've done my last audio feedback. Sorry about that. Just ran into somebody this past weekend who is also an amateur radio operator like me and an APG listener. So it jogged my memory that I actually thought of leaving you audio feedback here a couple months ago, but just forgot to do it. So I thought I'd do it today. But first I want to thank you for all of the regular episodes of the APG show. I had kind of gotten behind there for a while. Captain Jeff knows. He's been to our house before and had a wonderful dinner with us. About a year and a half ago or something. We live up sort of in the woods near forest, surrounded by forest in Swannanoa, North Carolina. And at the end of September, Hurricane Helene came through, knocked down tons of trees on our property. But we made it through just fine. Just a lot of damage on the property, tree-wise and stuff. So I've spent most of February and March in really long chainsawing sessions, like from morning till evening, trying to get through all of it, get rid of a brush and all of these old growth trees around the house that were knocked down, and just kind of get it all cleaned up, get things taken down to the road so that FEMA could take them away. And during those, especially February and March, I was able to catch up on the APG show a little bit during those chainsawing sessions. I found out that with my AirPods or earpods, whatever you call them, in my ears, and with the hearing protection on, I could really easily listen to the show. It was at a moderate volume, and you kept me company. No chainsaw incidents to report, so you must be doing something right there. Anyway, my audio feedback today really is less a question, just asking you if you could speak about something. So back in, what was it? I think it was back in February. I was with my daughter, Neva, who Jeff knows, and we were driving past the Asheville airport. It was a day with really poor visibility. And she was asking what procedures are like when a commercial aircraft comes in to the airport, because we were literally going under sort of the flight path there, and it was just really crummy visibility even for driving in a car. And she asked about that, and then it wasn't 2 days later that she and I flew out of Charlotte on a day when they were forecast like 60 mile per hour gusts. And I'll admit, I figured we'd probably hit some, we did have some moderate turbulence, which wasn't a big deal. Neither one of us are too affected by that. But I was curious if there'd be any, flight cancellations or anything like that, but there weren't. And I don't know, maybe the weather just wasn't as bad as they said it would be, or maybe it wasn't a crosswind effect. So what I wanted to ask is really if you could speak to a couple different things. Number one, in adverse conditions, especially when you have low visibility, what's the balance between sort of hand flying, and automation? Do you do more automation, or do you do just hand flying with instrument, with instrument control, or how do you do that? It seems in the past I've heard you talk about it, and I know that maybe it's even the company you work for that may have procedures that you follow. Perhaps it's even, the guidance by the aircraft manufacturer and that sort of thing. But I'm just really curious how that works, because I've sort of heard different things. And do you rely more on automation, like on the plane sort of doing auto landings and things like that in really low visibility, or is it the opposite of that? Also, when you have gusty winds, of course, I know that crosswinds can really have a huge effect on your ability to land and take off and everything. But do you get a little nervous when you see that wind gusts could be up to 60 miles per hour or more? When a front moves through an area, is it a lot easier to do that on takeoff than landing? Or is it just really a non-event? I'm just kind of curious about that, and I know my daughter is too. So if you could speak to it, that'd be wonderful. And thank you so much again for keeping up the good show. It's nice to catch up. And I'm listening to you now as I'm driving down I-77 heading south, hands-free, of course. Hands on the steering wheel. So it's as safe as it can be with me driving. So let's just put it that way. Take care, everyone. All the best, and look forward to your future shows.
Get your hands back on the wheel. Thomas, come on. Hey, Neva, if you're listening, great question. Thank you for sending that in. And Okay, I think it was like a couple of different questions there that he wants us to address. The first,
Low vis and crosswinds.
Yeah, low visibility and manual flying and autoflight. And in general, I mean, he is correct. It does have something to do a little bit with your airline's standard operating procedures. I don't think any of the airline manufacturers actually specify when you must, use the automation and such. But I know that at my former airline, once the visibility got below like 4,000 RVR which is 4,000 feet, and 3/4 of a mile visibility, that we were required to use the Autoflight, have it hooked up with the instrument landing system or whatever kind of approach you're doing, and if they are operating, if it's an operable situation. I don't want to go into all the, the details of if some equipment's not working, what you're allowed to do and what weather conditions and that kind of thing. But in general, the worse the weather gets, as far as ceiling visibility kind of weather, the more likely that you're going to have that automation on for safety. And we, in general, when the weather starts improving, most of us anyway, enjoy manually flying the airplane because, that's one of the best parts of the flight, in my opinion, is coming in for approach and landing and trying to just roll that thing on the runway. And we take a certain amount of pride in doing a really, really good job and just wowing people with our landing skills. Sometimes it doesn't work out exactly the way we expected to, have it done. But anyway, so the answer basically is when your weather conditions, it's foggy, low visibility, low ceilings, there is like almost 100% chance that if the airplane is equipped with Autoflight and can be coupled with the instrument landing system or whatever, then that is what's happening there. Right, Captain Nick?
Oh, absolutely. That's, well put, Jeff. For us, it was really as soon as the approach went below Cat 1. Cat 1 is the closest we could go and the lowest, doing a manual landing. As soon as the weather dropped below that cloud base, more important, the visibility limit, we went to a Cat 3 landing straight away.
Yeah.
And so even if it was Cat 2 limits, which gives you some leeway, we set the aircraft up for a full Cat 3 auto land.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant really having the autopilot engaged really, from base leg onwards, as you engage, because you really wanted to, in the Airbus, when you selected both autopilots on during the approach, it would do all its checks on itself and give you a category that it felt it was capable of doing. So on a fault-free aircraft, it would come up Cat 3B. Which is, the one where you don't even need to see the ground until you're kind of trying to taxi off
That's so much
the
fun,
runway.
isn't it?
Indeed it is. It's great. So we used the autopilots a great deal. When it comes to the winds, 60 knots or even 60 miles an hour is doable, but it's when it's across the runway and not up or down the runway. Well, I say not down. You couldn't land with a 60-knot tailwind.
No.
But you could certainly land with a 60-knot headwind if there wasn't too much turbulence. But the problem with very strong winds is as you get very close to the ground, you hit the mechanical turbulence that's generated in the interaction between the wind and all the buildings that are around. The Earth's surface is not smooth and flat, so you get a lot of eddies and vortices come off buildings, and that wind is not likely to be steady as well. It's likely to be gusting, so you're gaining and losing speed as you're coming down as those gusts hit you, and that can be difficult. Certainly if you're trying to take off in those conditions, I would feel much more comfortable than trying to land in them, because the great majority of the takeoff, you've got all your wheels on the ground, and within fairly short order, when you hit flying speed, hit rotate speed, you can pitch the aircraft up and get clear of the runway before anything happens. And once you're in the air, you start to drift around, and you've got to let the aircraft weathercock into the any crosswind, but you're pretty safe once you're flying. Landing is kind of a lot more prolonged period of you trying to fight the wind, trying to keep the aircraft straight, not even on the middle of the runway, but usually on the upwind side of the runway, so that when you do straighten the aircraft to let the wheels touch, you don't start drifting off the side, because as soon as you straighten up, all that protection you had by crabbing the aircraft in goes, and you start to drift away from the middle. So the idea is to straighten the aircraft. On the Airbus, you didn't even straighten it all the way. You only straightened it about half, and then as the wheels touched, you let the geometry of the wheels and the friction from the tires finish that straightening maneuver. But once your wheels are on the ground, you're safe. You're not going to drift off. It's just a matter then of making sure you keep the wings nice and level as you're doing that maneuver to straighten the aircraft, because it's traditional for, as you straighten the aircraft, the wing that you're bringing forward will start to rise, and you want to counter that. It doesn't happen straight away, and it's not a very predictable effect. Well, you know it's going to happen, but exactly when it happens is not easy. So you've got to kind of be ready, but not overreactive, and not too much and not too late. And as you try and just keep the aircraft all nice and level and settle it on. And the bigger the aircraft, sometimes the easier it is, but the bigger the aircraft, the more inertia you've got. So you tend to have problems with your SP, because the gusts really do have a big effect on your speed. You don't, the aircraft itself doesn't adjust to those new wind gusts. It just plows through them, and your airspeed is going up and down like, I won't say what, up and down like a kangaroo.
Yes.
Very good. Like it.
There you go. So, it's one of the hardest things, I think, for a pilot to learn to do properly. And certainly it carries the most risk in civil aviation, I think, is landing the aircraft in a strong crosswind.
Yeah.
Getting airborne, not so much. Cat 3 approaches, you definitely have to rely on the sophistication of your automatic pilot and its coupling to the instrument landing system on the airport. But you also need to have quite gentle winds, because the CAT automatic landing system cannot cope with very strong winds. So if you get, as we used to get at one of the airfields I worked at when I was in the Air Force, a 40-knot fog, which was a kind of advection fog that came in off the sea, hit the cliffs, came over the airfield, and as it rose to come up over the cliffs, it used to condense out into fog. So you'd end up with this incredibly strong, windy, foggy day. Those kind of days would defeat an automatic landing system, and it would defeat a manual landing system if you couldn't see the runway as well. So, but they're pretty rare, those conditions.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I was going to try to tie in, that first question about manual flying and autoflight when it comes to low visibilities. But in the case of strong crosswinds, the capabilities of the autoflight system are such that they can't handle a certain amount of crosswind beyond a certain amount of crosswind, because they just don't have the control authority to make the adjustments necessary. Only we humans and our reaction skills are able to do that. So, if it's a day with strong crosswinds, landing, you're going to be hand flying the airplane. Most likely. And also to kind of basically agree with Captain Nick's assessment of a strong headwind, more headwind is better, right? I mean, the wing just sees or knows what wind is going or flowing over the airfoil. So you'd think, 50 knot, 60 knot headwind is great. But in my experience, and I think Captain Nick's as well, anytime you have a condition where you have very, very high headwinds, as good as it is to have all that wind flowing over your wing, almost inevitably you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have wind shear and wind shear warnings and that kind of thing. And so that's the downside of really, really strong headwinds, is the fact that now you're going to have to deal with the possibility or likelihood that you're going to get that darn wind shear warning. Now, that would be an improving performance wind shear, which I think in most cases, in most airlines, we're allowed to go ahead and continue, after we assess the conditions at the time. A decreasing performance wind shear then is the bad wind shear, where, you're required to execute a wind shear escape maneuver. But again, in my experience, when you have a very high headwind with increasing performance, it's not so much the wind shear detection system on your airplane that I usually had to worry about. It was the systems around the airport that detect wind shear or downdraft, or what do they call that? What's the thing?
Microburst?
Microburst warnings. And our regulations at my company said, if they're saying that there are, microburst warnings or whatever in the area, then you can't even attempt to land the airplane. So that's another, limiting factor when it comes to really super high winds. But yeah, great question, Neva. Hope you're listening, and tell your dad we said hi, and thanks for sending in the audio feedback. All right, here's a piece of feedback that I'm going to have Nick Camacho cover with me, and it's some feedback sent in from Ant Pruitt, and he says, "Hello, Miss Liz, Dr. Steph, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, AJ, and Nick. And I hope you're all doing well. I'm unbelievable as always." I'm not sure I believe that, though, Ant.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's very hard to believe. I wanted to ask if there's a regulation by the FAA on how long a particular aircraft is considered airworthy. Not that it's an aircraft that's been beaten up. Okay. Not that it's an aircraft that's been beaten up by bump ups at a gate at JFK, but more so related to how old the aircraft is. I tried looking online myself and even asked AI, but I swear AI knows nothing as much as I know. Zilch. Oh, AI knows about as much as I do. Zilch. When I first read that, I'm thinking, Al. Is he talking about Captain Al? Every time I see AI, it looks like Al. Anyway.
Al knows a lot more.
Yeah, Al. Yeah, if you'd asked Al, Ant, he would have given you the right answer, I'm sure. Anyway, Ant continues. My car is almost 15 years old. I love it and feel very comfortable driving it. I've previously owned and enjoyed cars that were older than that. I'm fine. Sorry.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I should have hit my mute button so you didn't have to hear me sneeze. I previously owned and enjoyed cars that were older than that. I'm fine cruising around those mean streets of wine country in a car from the 70s, but can't say I'd feel that way about an aircraft. This all came to mind as I was having a chat with mutual friend, the lovely Miss Tanya Wyman, she's a great part of our APG community, on how I'm assuming Airbus is the standard in commercial aircraft these days. Boeing is in all of the jokes and tragedies. Airbus has all of those Neos out there and the flagship A350. They also have some 330s, brand new ones too, 330-900s.
Neos, yeah.
Boeing, that's what he's talking about. Okay. Boeing has the 787. Anything else? Yeah, the MAX. Not to pick on Boeing because my favorite aircraft I've been a passenger on is a 777, but man, that model is old. How much longer will we see 777s making a transatlantic trip? Same can be said for some A380s. Will these classics get aged out? Is that even a thing? If so, what's the age range? As usual, thanks for all you folks do for the aviation enthusiasts community, even a fringe enthusiast like me. The shows are always entertaining and informative. The newer additions to the crew are great. I love Dr. Steph, and I wasn't able to join the Charlotte hangout with her and Miss Tanya. Miss Liz flat out rules and always makes me smile when I hear her trying to keep the train on the track because she's a dadgum professional podcaster. Love it. Put that in all caps, by the way. Yeah. Well, we love that, and we love her as well, and I think you do too. And okay, this email is way too long. My bad. Sorry for the typos and crappy grammar. I ain't a perfect man. I'm close, though. Wow. Yes, you are unbelievable, Ant. Thanks again. Do something good for yourself. Do something good for someone else. Know that it's okay to love you some you. And again, this is from Ant Pruitt. Yeah, we love you, man. And he is a professional, a real professional podcaster. I mean, he gets paid, by people to do podcasts, and podcast networks pay him and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so what would you say, Camacho, regarding his question about, is there a certain age where airplanes, the FAA goes, yeah, I'm sorry, you've hit the magic age of 25 years and you can't fly that airplane anymore or whatever?
No, not technically. It kind of depends depends on the airplane and the circumstance, but generally, there are certain limitations put on aircraft, but a lot of times those limitations are based more on like cycles than hours.
And what's a cycle?
And a lot of times, a cycle's essentially a flight, right? It's like a pressurization cycle of the airplane, and a lot of times that's because, the flight, you're stressing the airframe as much by pressurizing the fuselage and doing all the things associated with pressurization as you are with flight loads. So a lot of times you'll see various airframes have certain cycle limitations, and there may be cycle and hour limitations, like hours flown, but very rarely are there calendar time limitations. And like I said, the cycles issue is more common in pressurized airplanes. There are also various components that require that have like mandatory rebuild cycles. Landing gear is a common one. A lot of times, so the airplane's life, the unceremonious end of various airframes often happen for a couple of reasons, and it's rarely that they time out. A lot of times there will be like underlying maintenance issues that become untenable in terms of cost. Mm-hmm. So like the landing gear is one, windshields are another one. Like you might end up with an airplane that you need to replace windshields and windows on, or you might need to replace landing gear, and the cost of doing all that work is going to be so similar to just the cost of the airplane that a lot of times it'll make more sense to just part the airplane out. And so you may end up having to spend, the airplane may be worth $2 million, and you may have to spend, $800,000 on, windshields and landing gear or engines or something. And so then it just doesn't make sense to keep flying the airplane.
Would it be kind of analogous to like your car is in an accident and the insurance company goes, yeah, it's totaled. And they go, well, no, it's not. I've been driving it. It's fine. And they go, nope, here's your check for, and we need to take your car away.
Yep.
And here's a check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense economically to do all the things you need to do to fix it, and you're just better off buying another one. And does this just apply to transport category aircraft, or does this also bleed over into general aviation and the other aspects?
No, it's mostly transport category airplanes.
Okay.
General aviation airplanes, you'll see a varying range. So, for instance, we talked about the DC-3 earlier.
How old is that thing?
I'm a part of the crew on. So the airframe that we fly has right around 10,000 hours on it, and is considered a lower time airframe in the world of DC-3s.
Mm-hmm.
I think the lowest time airframe is in like the 7,000 to 8,000 hour range. But then you'll also see airframes with like 70 to 80,000 hours on them. And there's no either manufacturer guidance or FAA guidance that says, you have to stop flying it at, this amount of cycles or this amount of hours or this age even.
Because that thing is kind of that was World War II?
Yep. Our airplane was built in 1944.
Yeah.
So.
And your Debonair that you fly is a 50 something or other, 19.
Yeah, that's a 1960 airplane.
60. Okay.
And it has, my airplane's got like 5,500 hours on it. But again, you can find Bonanzas. It also kind of depends on what you consider, like a harder life, right? You can find 60-year-old Bonanzas all day with 4,000 to 8,000 hours. But then you can also find some Bonanzas, like Lufthansa had a training center here in the United States, and they used kind of later model Bonanzas. So you can find a Bonanza that was maybe a late 80s or early 90s airplane. So it's a lot newer, but it also may have like 14,000 hours on it. So it may have like 3 times the amount of life in terms of flight. So
go ahead, Liz.
Can you guys talk about like C checks and stuff like that? Like that they sort of almost like check every component in the airplane or whatever? Like, I mean, aren't there certain maintenance routines that they do to make sure that things are kind of hanging in there?
Yeah, in the world of here in the United States, Part 121, which is air transport category or air transport scheduled airline service stuff and equipment, and basically airliners out there that most people are familiar with. There are a series of different types of checks at certain intervals and certain amounts of hours on the aircraft and cycles and all that kind of stuff. But again, I can't really answer that question because I really don't know all the details about it. But that man right here that's right next to me
so
knows something
there
about
are
that.
various types of phase inspections, essentially, right? Like each manufacturer defines a schedule of inspections you have to do, and a lot of times it's ranging from like Liz mentioned a C check. So they a lot of times they have like an A, B, C, and D check, and it's a progressively more invasive inspection of the airplane. And so it might be that, and I don't have a ton of experience with progressive inspections.
Right.
We operate the DC-3 on a progressive inspection, and we have basically an A cycle and a B cycle. But in our instance, it's more to it's basically an annual inspection. So an annual inspection is what a GA airplane goes through, and that's regardless of how often or how long you fly the airplane in 12 months, you have to get the airplane inspected every 12 months. So if I flew my airplane 2 hours or if I flew my airplane 500 hours over the past 12 months,
wow.
I still don't have to do anything in terms of inspections until I hit that 12-month period, and then I'm due an annual inspection, and it's the same inspection regardless of how much the airplane flies. The DC-3, we basically have a similar thing, but it's a phase inspection. So we've got it split up into 2 separate phases. So we check some of the airplane each year, but then like we check one engine one year, we check the other engine the next year, we check some components of the airplane every other year. So that kind of reduces the workload. And then when you get into the scheduled airline part of it, it might be like the easier to inspect and the more prone to failure components and sections of the airplane. They might be on an A check, and then a little bit deeper, you might go into a B check. And so essentially you're checking things that are easy to check, and then things that are have a higher likelihood of failure. You're checking those on a more regular basis. So it might be like every 6 months, or it might be like every 500 hours. And then, you progress through, and then you get to a C or a D inspection, whatever the end of the line inspection is. And that's essentially a heavy maintenance to the airplane, or, a near overhaul where they're taking everything apart and they're looking in depth at everything. And,
right. Thank you.
Yep.
Cool.
You know, I've always considered. A lot of people ask this question of people that are pilots, and especially airline pilots. And you even see that in a lot of the reports that we cover from various news sources that say, and this airplane, which was like 33 years old or whatever, it's like almost implying that, oh, it's a really old airplane, so no wonder it's involved in this incident or accident. And that kind of irritates me a little bit because of the extensive nature of these inspections. Every so often, these things are almost like completely rebuilt, pretty much. And and I was going to say, like driving around in a 15-year-old car or 20. I mean, I was driving around in a 25-year-old BMW before it caught on fire, and basically, that was the last it ever drove. But that's a different story for the. Yeah, I'm not going to. I really don't want to talk about that. But it's like, they're cars that if you maintain them properly, and if they're built, if they're well built cars to begin with, they just go on and on and on. But based or saying that, I'm thinking airliners are like 2, 3, 10 times better as far as I guess my point is, it's just irritating to me when certain news sources that we use on our show make kind of a big deal or imply that that because it's so old it must be unsafe, and that's just not really the case in my opinion.
I agree, and I kind of have the same feeling about both the age of an airplane as well as a lot of times you hear about experimental airplanes and experimental amateur built airplanes, I should say, and people saying like, oh well, somebody built that in their garage and didn't know what they were doing. And it's totally a case-by-case basis type of thing, where
they may have really been they really may have known what they were doing, or they may not have. It's got to go either way, I guess.
Exactly. There are people who probably don't know the limitations of their skills, and they may get in over their head. There's also a lot of amateur airplane builders who are who take far greater pride in their airplane than someone going to work at an 8 to 5 job where they're getting paid $20 an hour. Now there are checks in place to make sure that person who is just punching a clock doesn't cause any problems. So I think there are advantages to certificated airplanes, but I do hear people say, oh, that's an amateur built airplane, I wouldn't get in that, or oh, that's a 60-year-old airplane, I wouldn't get in that. And, it really just depends on who's been taking care of it, because, there are 60-year-old Bonanzas that are literally in better condition than when they came out of the factory.
Yep.
And, speaking of 60-year-old machines.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of 60-year-old machines, Tim Van Ram, again, in our live chat says, I drive a 63-year-old car and love it.
His Corvette, I think.
Very nice. Okay,
let's do the last item then.
All right, let's do one more piece of feedback. And thanks, Ant, for that great question. And I'm sure a lot of people have the same question about that. And I think that has likely alleviated their concern when it comes to getting on an airplane that looks kind of like, that's another thing I was going to say, that you walk on an airplane and you'll notice that a lot of times you get on these airplanes and it's a brand new airplane as far as you can tell, because all the upholstered seats and the new screens and everything, all the new lighting installed inside the aircraft make this thing must have just come out of the factory. I mean, it smells brand new. Well, that's the interior of the aircraft. Doesn't really necessarily mean anything about the actual important things about the airplane and the safety and that kind of thing. I think I can tell that Nick is going to add something to that as well.
I was going to say, I just want to make sure that I explained that I love old airplanes. So,
right.
For anyone that's concerned about old airplanes, I would not be the person to come to for an unbiased opinion, because I love old airplanes.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
As does Jet.
Yeah. And I love old people.
His old.
Thanks. That's nice to hear.
Yeah. Well, I don't know any really old people except for myself when I see myself in the mirror. But hey, some of us are, we're well maintained and we can perform just like maybe not a 20-something-year-old, but maybe, 30s, 40s,
Okay, moving on.
Give us a test drive. Okay. Liz is going like, okay, I don't like where this is going. So Jeff, move on, please. This is some feedback sent in from Alan Murray. Radio failures, blackouts, the solution. Hi, Captain Jeff. Your comments about radio communications failures, blackouts have a simple solution, and surely were the very reason parallel runways were conceived. All pilots have to do is take off in parallel pairs, fly in pairs, and then land in pairs. Prior to takeoff, if each pair is issued with 2 tin cans and a piece of string, it means that the pilots can, if all else fails, at least speak to each other. Over and out. And again, that's Alan.
Brilliant.
Alan Murray. That's some out-of-the-box thinking there, Alan. The old tin can thing on the string. Yeah, I never realized, Captain Nick, did you, that that's the reason why they came up with this whole parallel runway system?
Well, I think it's a brilliant idea. Just so long as there's nothing between the two runways to catch the bit of string. Otherwise, you could get pulled out the window, which could be a bit embarrassing. Yeah,
that would be.
And of course, you've got to eat the baked beans before you can, use the tin. Right. And that's never very good. If one of the pilots eats a whole can of baked beans, you're going to have a pretty miserable flight. So, I wouldn't recommend it, Alan.
Yeah, and if you don't eat all the beans in the can, then it's going to be very muffled. It's going to be not clear communications at all.
Well, that's true. I mean, it does in fact work, because I do remember my little friend Ricky, who lived about 5 houses down, all our backyards lined up, and through sneaking through our neighbours' gardens, we managed to pass a piece of string all the way down to his house 5 gardens away, which we tied to our baked bean cans, and we could indeed communicate, although you've got to pull it quite tight to get the vibrations to travel up and down them, and that meant that you've got to tie a big knot in the hole in the bottom if you can. There were all sorts of technical problems we had to overcome, but we did manage to communicate. And the first words we said, Mary had a little lamb. There you go.
Yeah, you and Graham Bell, Alexander Graham Bell.
Okay, so we're going to read this piece of feedback because, let's see, this show should be published on Monday, I think the 9th, so this next upcoming weekend is going to be the Father's Day weekend. This year it's the 15th of June. And so Les sent in some feedback, and the title of his feedback is A Father's Day Story, My Son's Journey, a Self-Made Pilot. Happy Father's Day, one and all. Truck driver Les from Iowa here. I've been wanting to share with you, and then he puts in parentheses, brag about my son's journey from ground school to the right seat of Acme Airlines Airbus 330s. Personally, I've always loved airplanes, aircraft, and aviation in general. As a family, I would drag them all in the family car to the end of the local busy general aviation airport and watch the comings and goings, identifying aircraft by manufacturer and model to my son. About his 15th birthday, out of the blue, pun intended, he asked me if he could take private pilot ground school. I was thrilled and pleased and gave him my wholehearted support. He looked at me and said, "But Dad, ground school is 2 nights a week and it's 20 miles away." I looked at him and said, "Son, I've always wanted to take ground school too. Let's go." That's nice. Driving to and from ground school, we began the discussion of flying lessons, airplane rental, flight instructor costs, and with a sad heart, I shared that I just didn't have a lot of extra money to pay for his training. With that, my son started taking part-time jobs. He flipped burgers and made ice cream sundaes at the Dairy Queen. He worked as a meat cutter at the local grocery store. He worked every Saturday at the little 2-stall standard gas station as a pump jockey, grease monkey, and mechanic assistant, and got a lesson in how to shift a 1964 Chevy sedan with a 3-on-the-tree transmission without help from his boss. But they sure enjoyed his frustration in killing the engine, grinding gears, and teenager cussing while he got that car into the service bay. Nothing like experience, right? He got a summer job at the Liberal Arts College as an electrician's helper, and one of the more impressive jobs he got on his own while in high school was an emergency medical technician, an EMT at the hospital that was across our backyard. He took those classes on his own and became fast friends with each of the air ambulance helicopter pilots that frequented the hospital. Time for college, and that son of mine didn't slow down. He attended the University of Dubuque's aviation program with a leg up, as he was just a few hours short of his private pilot's license. While at college, he went to the local privately owned ambulance service with the EMT credentials in hand to get a part-time job a part-time after-school job with them. The owner liked my son's resume and work experience, but sadly had to tell him because their service area was parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, they could only use paramedics with the national certification. Undaunted, my son asked how he could get that rating. The owner smiled and said, "We have classes here beginning next week." At college, he worked hard on his climb up the FAA ratings ladder, earning the usuals: private pilot instrument, commercial pilot, flight instructor, which he then used to teach his classmates, earn money, and most importantly, build his logbook hours. He soon got his instrument flight instructor, high-speed complex rating, multi-engine instrument, and even got a tail dragger endorsement in the 4 years at Dubuque. He continued flying everything he could at the home airport and at Dubuque for the college, going for that 1,500 hours, all the while still doing his paramedic work as well. In his spare time, he got married and earned his master's degree in business. Oh my gosh, spare time. Now, for an important detail to my son's story before we continue. My son's drive and, dare I say, love for aviation is proven by the fact that, like many, many other men and women pilots, my son never failed a check ride. He's busted his posterior for a career in aviation. Wow, that's amazing. He got his job offer with a subsidiary of Acme Airlines, Cardinal Points Airlines. I think I know which one that is. I think we could probably safely say that it has something to do with the Compass. Hired him and put him through Embraer and CRJ training. He loved it and was beaming with well-deserved pride. He had a life-sized poster of the CRJ instrument panel on the wall in his garage to study, crammed all the procedures and policies into his brain, and passed his simulator check ride to earn his type rating in his future aircraft. But he had that one major hurdle to clear, his airline transport pilot rating. Without that, his dreams and life goals would not be met. He and his training partner, a former classmate at Dubuque, were to take the ATP simulator exam together. My son was to be the captain in the first flight, then serve as his classmate's pilot, monitoring during his chance to fly. My son was going through all the pre-flight procedures, checklists. Everything was rocking smoothly. Their flight, Minneapolis to Chicago O'Hare and back. Easy peasy, right? Getting takeoff clearance, my son got his bird off the ground, up to the altitude for gear, flaps up when the gear would not come up. He told me he thought, gee, that equipment failure came early in this flight. As a team, he and his first officer worked the checklist and communicated with the tower that they had a problem. My son set the autopilot for the altitude so they could further diagnose the issue without having to worry about busting an altitude assignment. But the autopilot was inoperative as well. He told me later he was starting to sweat. As usually, the examiner will only fail one thing and see how you handle it. This flight now had no gear up and no autopilot. After not seeing a solution available, my son advised we're returning to Minneapolis, a short flight, but hopefully a good enough display of his skills. As Tower gave them landing permissions, my son asked for flaps, only to be advised by his first officer the flaps were not responding either. My son confessed to me later was seeing in his mind years of hard work busting butt, and a perfect record on passing check rides going out the window. So my son had the FO advise that they were going around due to this new issue while they went through another set of checklists and finally worked out the formulas for aircraft total weight, slope, speed, approach angle. All the while, their uniform shirts were soaking with sweat. They made their approach and landing, stopping on the runway and asking for maintenance to come out and pin the gear. Both my son and his first officer turned around to look at the examiner and said something more or less to, "What the heck was that?" The examiner said he didn't do it. The simulator had a glitch in it and threw all those failures at them on its own. But the examiner said that rather than stop the flight, he let my son and his FO continue just to see how they'd handle it. My son had earned his cherished ATP. Yeah. When it was my son's turn as FO for his classmate, that flight from Minneapolis to O'Hare went without any failures. The examiner said that they both did such a good job on my son's flight, he didn't need to put them through any more stress. And so my son's career with Cardinal Point began. Predictably, his path began as a Greenhorn first officer, then captain, then line check airman, and even qualified as an in-flight FAA examiner for the CRJ. He still has his gold FAA badge framed on his office wall. Moving up to Acme, he's flown Mad Dogs, 757, 767s, 737s, and is now happily flying right seat in the Airbus A330. If you've made it this far in my father's bragging, God bless you. Happy Father's Day, one and all. Blue skies, tailwinds, and unlimited visibility. And again, that's from truck driver Les, a very, very proud father of his son.
Justifiably proud.
Airlines, yeah, from Mason City, Iowa. I was just going to say, the reason why I was kind of chuckling here, let's see, what was it that I thought was really, really funny? Shoot. Yeah, sorry.
The fact that he's flying Mad Dogs that are probably all older than him.
No, I wasn't going to say that at all. Camacho, thanks for that. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. It was something that I really thought was funny. The part about, when his son was flying as pilot monitoring the second flight in the simulator, and the examiner said that they both did such a good job on his son's flight, he didn't put them through any more stress. I'm thinking that's almost worse.
Yeah.
Because you're going, we're going to have some kind of an issue here. And what is it that I'm missing? I mean, that could almost go the other, be a disaster, because then we start making up emergencies that usually is not, it doesn't end well when that happens. But I'm glad that they just did what they needed to do and flew the flight without any kind of an emergency thrown in by the examiner. Yeah, what a great story for sure.
That is a great story.
Yeah.
And Les should be proud of his part in his son's
career. Absolutely.
Like
Les, if it weren't for you taking your family to the busy General Aviation Airport and watching the comings and goings and identifying the aircraft by manufacturer and models and all that kind of stuff, there's a good chance that he never may have had an interest at all in aviation, right? I mean, he may have, but you just don't really know.
So the only thing I'm bummed about with this feedback is Les never mentions any opportunities he got to go flying with his son.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's a really well written feedback, but I would love to hear about some of his favorite times that he got to go flying with his son.
He's got to send part 2 in.
Okay, you have an assignment now, Les, and tell us about going on some of these flights while your son was flying the aircraft. I had the opportunity to do that with my mother.
That's a good story.
When before she passed away, I think it was just one flight. She and her second husband, and I don't want to go into too much detail. My dad died pretty early, but she married our next door neighbor. I mean, he was like family to us, anyway. And he was a great man as well. Anyway, the two of them were able to fly on one of my flights. I think it was an Atlanta to Dallas Fort Worth flight. Anyway, it was an honor for me to be able to have my mom in the back of the jet and yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'm sure she was proud of me as well. Okay.
Yeah. So I remember the first time I got to fly with my dad, and it was not like that.
It was not a wonderful thing.
Well, no, it's just there's no way I would have gotten to where I got in aviation without my mom and dad's support. But as we've talked about my dad, he's very heavily involved in aviation. And,
he's a great guy. I've got to meet him a few times.
Lots of great experiences with him. But somehow I managed to. I flew with him a lot growing up, and then somehow I managed to kind of get all of my training squished in. Over a year, however long it took me, without flying with him at all. So the first time, I went from flying with him as a completely inexperienced non-pilot to then I got my pilot's license and then went out, and he was the first person I flew with.
Nice.
And, it was just stressful for both of us.
Yeah.
But we learned how to, work with each other and manage each other. And so it got to be where it was a lot of fun to fly with him, but it was definitely, the first flight was definitely a little stressful.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine what that might be like, except that to kind of equate it to like when your kid is learning how to drive and how kind of awkward and weird that whole thing is when your kid maybe is
especially
not doing
if you're
very
like
well.
Especially if you don't teach them or don't do anything, right? Like my dad was a CFI and had the capability to teach me, but we just kind of decided that this was a better approach, which I think it was.
Yeah.
But then you get in the airplane and he's like, why are you doing it this way? Why aren't you doing this? And I got a little flustered.
And just quickly before we end this, my little anecdotal story with my mom, and I know we're coming up on Father's Day, but my mother would tell people because she didn't want people to know how old she was. They would ask about her son, and she'd say he's in like 5 years old or in 5th grade or whatever. And then at some point, she was saying something about, being an airline pilot, and they were going, I thought he was only 5 years old. How was he an airline pilot? She goes, yeah. She finally got to the point where she couldn't claim that I was like a kid anymore.
That's funny.
And the other thing I thought was funny was like she'd say, when I'd talk to her about the things going on in my military career and then finally flying for Delta and flying into Los Angeles, I did that quite a bit in the 90s. And she said, does the captain actually let you fly the airplane into Los Angeles? And I said, yes, Mom. They actually let me fly the airplane. And then at one point, I actually did get to fly as a captain flying into Los Angeles International. I said, yes, I let myself fly the airplane into Los Angeles International, Mom.
I gave myself permission.
But in her mind, I was always that little kid, looking up in the sky and, have my little model airplanes flying around, So, all right, it's time to wrap it up. We're going to go ahead and point you over toward our website, airlinepilotguy.com, where you'll find information about the crew and the community, and got a community calendar and merchandise and more detailed information about each of the Plaintail installments. And what else? I mentioned the calendar already. A library, believe it or not. Our librarian Tiffany handles that for us. Anyway, a lot of good stuff there on the website, so head over there and check it out. And we're also on social media, or what I like to call the social meds.
Indeed we are. And if you're a Facebook fan, go to facebook.com/Airline Pilot Guy, all one word. And if you're on an ex-Twitterer who now is on X, we are at APG Crew. On the Instas of Instagram, instagram.com/APG Crew. And of course, the YouTube channel that we're currently recording on, youtube.com/Airline Pilot Guy.
You got it. And we're also on something that's kind of like social media and more. It's called Slack. Let's see if hello. Can you tell us about Slack? Hello?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
That's all right. Just come on over. Just don't get anything on the electrical podcasting equipment, please. Okay. Tell us about it.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks a lot, Hillel.
Where's the soap?
It's on the floor. Oh no, don't bend over. No, don't bend over. Oh.
Oh dear.
Oh boy.
Ooh, that sounds a bit
Oh
harsh.
Jeff, that's traumatic.
That's traumatic. PTSD. Let's see. We're also here to thank Liz Piper, our producer, who does all the work.
Thank you, Liz. Good job,
Thank you, Liz.
as always.
My
Yep,
pleasure.
and also like to thank our live chat room, our live audience that joins us each and every week. You should as well. So make sure you're signed up for the social media so you know when we're recording the show. And we have a good group of folks here with us today, so thank you for that. And finally, I guess we can say wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Ta-ta for now.
See you next time.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Good day.
I used to be such a good pilot till I started APG. I opened doors for little old ladies. I helped them to their seats. Airline pilot guy, I fly America. Oh, airline pilot guy, he can land in heavy fog. I got no friends 'cause I'm always flying. I just don't have the time. But I can land this old plane. I can land it just fine. Airline pilot guy,